Now, you're going to hear us call each other a bunch of different names, but let me get this straight right quick. His name is Irving Fryar, okay? He's Dr. Irving Fryar, if we want to be politically correct. But to me, he's Pastor Smurf. Yeah. Hey, welcome to the Look Like Somebody podcast. I'm your host, Ricky C. Simmons. You know, I'm always talking about positive mental attitude and treating people the way you want to be treated. Being a good person, those are things that I was raised with, and I'm very, very serious about them. And being a good person really doesn't cost you anything financially. It's just a desire that you have to have within yourself. And it brings me to think about my guest. I mean, I've known this guy since we were teenagers. We're brothers, and we will be brothers forever regardless. But I really, really, really want y'all to understand who my guest is. Now, you're going to hear us call each other a bunch of different names, but let me get this straight right quick. His name is Irving Fryar, okay? He's Dr. Irving Fryar, if we want to be politically correct. But to me, he's Pastor Smurf. So I want y'all to know, if you hear me say, "What's up, Smurf?" or "Pastor Smurf," that's what that's about. Irving Fryar, welcome to the show.
What up, V. Clyde?
What's up? See, there we go. We already got started with the names, man. V. Clyde is my nickname. So, man.
Well, listen, can I say something right off the bat, right off the rip?
Okay.
I want to let everybody know that my time in Nebraska started out, and the whole time it was a great time, but Ricky C. Simmons was a big part of not me coming to Nebraska, but me staying in Nebraska. You know, when I got to Nebraska at 17 years old, I remember the day I got there, August 13th, 1980. I was staying in Able dorm, and you know, I didn't know anybody. Turner Gill was my roommate. Mike Rozier had not come yet. He was on his way our sophomore year, so I was there by myself all the way from New Jersey. Hadn't turned 18 years old yet. I was still 17. And right off the rip, Ricky and Nate lived down the street from my dorm.
Correct.
And somehow, some way, I don't know how it really initially started, but Ricky befriended me. And from that point on, you know, I had a friend. I had a place that I could go hang out at his crib, him and Nate. And I was welcomed with open arms. And here's the other thing about it, too. Not that we played the same position, but we were competing for balls.
Oh, man, yeah.
Who was going to see how many balls they got thrown to them or how many reverses they got a chance to run, and that never really mattered. That never mattered. I came in, Ricky was already there. He knew what position I played. He knew I was from Jersey, and we have been friends, close friends, ever since then. I won't tell everybody what we did while we were in college. but let me say this. We had a lot of fun.
We probably had way too much fun. If we're gonna keep it real.
No such thing. No such thing.
I know, but I'm trying to be politically correct here. Keep the questions down, I guess. Well, Irving, again, man, I just want to thank you for taking time to be on the show, because to me, man, it's very important that this podcast is about helping people. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, a lot of times when people get a platform, they tend to focus just on the positive things in their life, which is fine.
Right.
Which is fine. I'm not against that at all. I just want people to understand that sometimes you're going to go through some trials and tribulations, and I know that you and I both understand that. Mm-hmm. And so I like to kind of mix the bad with the good, you know, so that we can let people know that may be currently in a bad situation. Let them know that, hey, man, don't give up. You know, there's hope for all of us. I have yet to meet a perfect person, and I really be careful when it comes to people telling me they're perfect, because then I got to start getting away from them, because
Because they're not perfect.
Yeah, I don't believe that. You know,
if they believe they're perfect, they have an issue. That's the issue.
Yeah,
they believe they're perfect.
Yeah. And they got an issue that I can't help them with.
Right.
So
right.
yeah, so the only thing I can do is give them 50 feet.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I have to get away from them. So, Irving, tell us a little bit about you, man. Kind of give us a Cliff Notes version of Irving Fryar coming from the East Coast.
East Coast, wow. It's kind of an amazing story. Some people, I guess, if they caught me telling my story and my journey in the middle of it, they would somewhat probably think that I'm a little bit unappreciative of what has happened in my life, what has transpired in my life. I mean, obviously, yeah, I came to Nebraska and played 4 years there and was an All-American wingback. Went on to the NFL. I was drafted in 1984, the very first player taken in the draft by the New England Patriots. I played there for 9 years. Then I went down to Miami, played there for 3 years, then went to Philly and played there 3 years. Then I finished my career up with what was called back then the Washington Redskins. They're the Commanders now. 17 years in the league, 5 Pro Bowls. When I finished playing, when I retired, I was 5th all time in the NFL in terms of receptions and yardage. Obviously, that's changed now because the game has changed and they catch a whole lot more balls than we did back during my my tenure there.
But you also had a Super Bowl appearance in that time too, right?
Yeah. My second year in the league, we made a Super Bowl run, wild card team, ended up Super Bowl is in New Orleans, or was in New Orleans this past February, and it was in New Orleans then, and we set a record in that Super Bowl.
Really,
we got beat by more points than anybody in the history of the Super Bowl at that time. That record has been since then it's been surpassed. So we're not the record holders anymore. But yeah, that was a bittersweet encounter. It really was. It was good to get to the Super Bowl, and mind you, you know, back then, 1985
right.
Super Bowl, things weren't like they are now in terms of the NFL. You know, you got social media now. You have, you know, the ESPNs and the sports networks. All of that wasn't taking place back then during that time. It was just starting, but it wasn't as influential on sports fans like it is now. Now it's a big deal. You watch, you know, some of the things that took place before the Super Bowl when it took place between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. Before the Super Bowl, they got the teams coming out and they're wearing these sweatsuits and they're doing interviews and got media day, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
we didn't do all of that back then. So yeah, it was a bittersweet, a lesson learned. Also, you know, my second year going to the Super Bowl, I just assumed that we were always going to go back to the Super Bowl. We were always going to be in the playoffs because coming from Nebraska, we were winners.
Right.
My second year in the NFL, we were winners. But that assumption was, you know what assumptions do. Yeah, that assumption was wrong. I never sniffed a Super Bowl again.
But you know,
16 more years, never sniffed a Super Bowl.
You know what I was just sitting there thinking, man, is there's not a lot of people that can say they had 17 NFL seasons. That's quite an accomplishment, and I just want to acknowledge that because that's pretty rare.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, a lot of these guys play well. Football itself is just not a guaranteed thing, anyways.
Right.
Just like anything else in life. But man, you were very blessed to be able to have 17 seasons under your belt. I just think that needs to be acknowledged. And as your brother, I'm going to always put you out there like that because I want people to understand that, yes, you have successes, and then you also have some downsides. And, and adversity is just a part of this deal called life. You know, whether you deserve it, whether you're guilty or not, is really not what I'm trying to explain. Some things just happen that we have no control over, but I think the biggest part is how we bounce back from stuff.
Right.
You know?
Well, we weren't, first of all, if you stop, if you give up, if you quit, then progress ceases. That's the only way I believe we as human beings can lose is if we decide to quit. God made us. Watch this now, V. Clyde. You never heard this before.
I'm watching.
God, and I'm not trying to preach, but I'm going to take a moment here.
Okay, go right ahead.
God made us to move forward. What am I talking about? Well, your eyes are in front of your head, in front of your face, right?
Right.
So you can see what's in front of you, not what's behind you. Your ears, your mouth, I should say, your mouth is in front of your face. It's not at the top of your neck, behind your head.
Right.
It's in front of you. So you can speak those things that are not as though they already are. Your ears are tilted forward. So you can hear, yes, you can hear what's behind you, but they're tilted forward. So you can hear as you're going along. Your arms work better when you're reaching forward. They don't work good when you try to reach behind you.
Right, right.
Your feet are pointed forward. Anatomically, we're designed to move forward. And you put one foot in front of the other and keep moving forward.
Makes sense.
Yeah, anytime we decide to quit or to stop, we're not doing what we're designed to do. We're designed to move forward. And like you said, yeah, NFL 17 years, NFL stands for not for long.
Absolutely.
So yes, I was blessed. But the what's ironic about my situation, V. Clyde, is that first of all, I didn't want to come to college, let alone Nebraska.
Right. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, I didn't want to go to college. My mom made me go to college. Mike Rozier and I grew up together. His grandmother lived right next door to me. We were being recruited by the same schools. So I told all the schools that were recruiting me, listen, wherever Mike goes, that's where I'm going. My mom wants me to go to college. I'm not making the choice because I don't want to go.
Right.
But I'm scared of my mom more than I am anybody else in the world.
Right.
So I'm going to do what my mama said do, and I'm going to college. So Mike chose Nebraska. He had narrowed it down to two schools, Pittsburgh, the University of Pittsburgh. I could have been with Dan Marino, and Nebraska. I could have been with Dan twice in college and in the pros.
Right.
And so Mike had to go to a JUCO because of his grades.
Right.
And I guess because Coffeyville with Nebraska had a better JUCO program, Mike chose Nebraska. And so that's how I ended up in Nebraska. Now, my mindset was the same. Now, I'm mad at my mama. Okay, I don't want to be in Nebraska, far away from home. I don't have any money, don't have nothing, I don't have no car, nothing. My mindset was, okay, I'm going to play here 4 years, get a degree, and leave here and go into the service, to the Marines, and fly these jets off aircraft carriers because that's what I wanted to do. When it came about, towards the latter part of our senior year, that's when we started hearing draft. That's when we started hearing about NFL. That's when we started hearing about, okay, right, you're going to go to the next level. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to go play in the NFL because I wanted to fly jets off of aircraft carriers. Well, I went home after Mike and I did our All-American tour. I went home and I couldn't find my family. My mama, my daddy, my two sisters, they weren't living in the house that I grew up in. It was boarded up. We were homeless. They were staying with my grandmother. And so my mama said to me, you need to go play professional football because we need a house.
Wow. Okay. See, these are things that people don't know.
Yeah, they don't know this. My mama knows.
Yeah.
So I went and played. That's kind of actually how I believe New England ended up with the first pick, because I believe at the beginning of the draft, or before the draft actually happened, Cincinnati had the first pick, I believe, that year. And somehow, I don't know if they were going to choose me or not, but word got around, he's not going into the NFL. Or at least I told them, because they contacted me, I'm not going to the NFL. And then things changed around, conversation with my mom. Now New England has the first pick. And then I ended up in New England. But I played, man. I just, where I was, I did the best that I could. I put all my time, all my effort in to trying to be successful, because I didn't like being second. I didn't like losing. I didn't like any of that. I was very competitive in whatever it is I did, whether it was the classroom, whether it was the football field, even if I was playing checkers with my little sister, I got to win. So because I was there, with my kids too, when my kids were growing up, I beat them in everything. They never beat me in anything. No. That's just how I am. You got to lose. So that's how I ended up playing 17 years, about 7 or 8 years, not 7 or 8, about 4 or 5 years into my NFL career. And I was just kind of, mulling around. I really didn't have a plan because that was not my plan to play in the NFL. So I was just kind of doing my thing and not really being aware of the influence that I had as an NFL player, of the space that I was in that being in the NFL and what that carried with it, or what came with it, and the weight that, not the weight that was a pressure weight, but the influence of the weight that was with us that we carry as professional players. I never was really aware of that and never really used that to my advantage because I was just kind of flim-flamming around because it wasn't my plan. About 5 years into my career in the NFL, Chris Collinsworth retired and started doing commentary like he is now still. 40 years later, he's still doing it. Chris Collinsworth, it actually turned out to be a good thing. He actually, and one of the things they say to you when you go from the NFL into commentary, because I used to do that, they say, listen, you have to be able to criticize players. We know you just came from playing, but you got to be able to criticize the players. So I guess Chris Collinsworth was trying to prove his worth with the network. He said that I was a first-round bust. Well, he struck a nerve.
Gotcha,
he struck a nerve. He pissed me off. And I played the rest of those years trying to prove him wrong. And I did prove him wrong, but I played with a chip on my shoulder. And my game started to go to another level. I got focused. I got saved and became a child of God, which really, really was a big part of me getting focused. And I went on to play 17 years.
Irv, and
I had a successful career.
I got to say this, man. Not only did you have a successful career, I got to go back to college for a second. And the reason why I want to go back to college, because I want to emphasize just how important this is. I mean, me and you came out the same year, and you were the first overall pick. And here's the catch. Dude, we only maybe got 1 or 2 passes even thrown in our direction the whole season.
Yeah, man.
I think you might
catch a lot of balls.
Yeah, no, I think you might have got more touches because you returned punts.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, as far as just passing,
right?
I mean, we had like you said, we had Mike Rozier, 83 Heisman Trophy winner in the backfield, and most of the time it was pitch it to Mike and everybody else blocked.
Well, because if Mike didn't get the ball, he come in there fussing. He come in the locker room fussing. Halftime, if he didn't have a certain amount of carries, he fussing at Tom. Call Coach Osborne, Tom, I need the ball. I need the ball, Tom. I need the ball. Mike, you didn't carry the ball 25 times in the first half. Don't you need the ball more? Hey, good gosh.
I'm gonna use.
Eat.
Yeah, I'm gonna use one of Mike's saying. I don't think Mike went to kindergarten because he didn't learn how to share.
He didn't learn how to share. Nobody taught him how to share.
But
but I tell you what, it was a privilege. Not with yourself, Nate Mason, yourself, the Williams brother Toby and Jimmy Williams, Russell Gary,
Rodney Lewis. Man, we had.
It was a treat and honor to play with you guys. Mike Rozier. Mike is one of the 2 best running backs I ever played with in my career. I played with 2 great running backs, Mike Rozier and Ricky Waters.
Yeah.
And Mike was in college. Then I went on into the pros. I played 9 years in New England, and we had an okay running game. Craig James was there, but he was just okay, in my opinion. And then I went on to Miami, and we threw the ball. We ain't have no running game.
Yeah.
And then I went to Philadelphia. I can remember, man, I think it was the first game. It was either the first or the second game I'm playing in Philly. And I'm downfield blocking because that's what we do.
Yeah.
I know I block. I'm downfield blocking, and Ricky runs by me. Shoom. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, man, it's been a long time since I had a running back like that. I'm like, this is going to be fun. Ricky went by me so fast. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, that's awesome. Okay, we're going to have fun now. Because that was the second running back that I ever played with that was like that. Mike used to do the same thing. You blocking downfield, you run right by you.
Yep.
It was great. But it was an honor to play with you guys, man. We had a great time. We had a great team. they're getting things back together now and getting back on top now at Nebraska. It was several years of frustration, several years of torment, several years of embarrassment. I wouldn't wear my Nebraska gear, man. I wouldn't even talk about Nebraska. But now I'm a proud Corn Husker. And look, we got Cam Jurgens here in Philadelphia.
Right,
playing
exactly.
with the Eagles, man. His first year as a starter, Super Bowl.
Good God, yeah. Well, you know, I was just sitting there thinking about that too, because speaking of all the difficult times that Nebraska has recently went through, we both travel a lot. And I had this funny story about I was traveling, and I was at an airport. I think I was waiting on a flight out of Las Vegas back to Nebraska. Mm-hmm. And when I'm away from Nebraska, I'll be honest with you, I'd be repping the Huskers, man. I wear like a Husker polo or something with an N on it. And, man, this right here kind of embarrassed me a little bit, but it was funny because I know the kid didn't mean any harm. But I'm sitting there, and I'm checking my phone and stuff, and I got this Nebraska polo on. And this little kid, I guess he's probably around 10 years old. He was traveling with his mother, mm-hmm. and he kept looking at my shirt, and then he looked back at his mom, and he looked at my shirt, and he looked back at my mom. And, man, he says, "Hey, Mom." And I heard the kid. I know he didn't mean any harm, but he goes, "Hey, Mom, I didn't know Netflix had a polo." Man, I'm like, oh, man, that's, but I couldn't say anything, But what I did was I smiled, and I carried these football cards that I pass out at all the speeches that I do around the country. I had a card in my pocket, and it was autographed, so I handed it to the kid. I asked his mom, "Can I give your son a souvenir?" And she said, "Sure." So I gave him the card, and he looked at it. He goes, "Oh, Nebraska."
No, Netflix.
Yeah. Yeah, Netflix. No, not Netflix. It's Nebraska. But no, I'm really proud to have the honor to play with you and a bunch of the guys that you mentioned as well, because, those are memories that I'll have forever.
Yeah, man.
And in particular, I mean, the whole time I was there, we were always a reputable team that was ranked really high in the country. Yeah. I always think about our senior year. I mean, to be 12-0, mm-hmm. number one team in the nation for 12 straight weeks, when you're going to get everybody's best shot. And mm-hmm. to run the table, man, and be undefeated and go to Miami for the third straight Orange Bowl, mm-hmm. and play for a national championship against Miami on their home field. Dude, those are memories that I will keep forever.
Right.
And I just want people to know we did not win that national championship because we went for two. Yeah. And I'm still thinking that's the right choice, because to me, I didn't go to Miami to tie.
Right. Yeah.
I went to win. So I'm cool with that. But
it was the right choice. Did I ever tell you the story about that 2-point conversion?
No.
Here's a story about the 2-point conversion, which maybe people who are watching this right now, maybe you never knew this. And this is not, trust me, this is not a slight on anybody. Not at all. It's just, it's what happened. So we did score, and we're down by 1. We could have kicked the extra point and tied it up. We decided to go for 2. And I'm not sure if we had a huddle on the sidelines or whatever, if coach asked us or not, but I think there was no doubt in anybody's mind that we were going for 2.
Correct.
If you remember that play, V, I don't know if you were in.
No, I was on the play that we scored. And
right, you were in the play we scored.
Yeah, and then the next play.
The 2-point conversion, I was on the wing.
Yeah.
And I was supposed to rub the linebacker, and Jeff Smith was running out in the flat, and Turner was going to throw him the ball, or throw the ball to me if I came open between the linebackers. When the ball got snapped, everybody on the defensive line, linebackers, secondary, everybody ran to my right. Now I'm trying to get out there and rub this guy to interfere with him a little bit. But the corner out there, waited for Jeff. He didn't go anywhere. He just stayed right there. And he's the corner on the outside is the one who deflected the ball to the ground. So it seemed like they were in the right place. It seemed like they knew exactly what we were going to do. We took the L. That's fine. So I get drafted. I go to New England. I'm in New England for 9 years. I go to Miami after that. I'm in training camp, my first training camp in New England. Early in training camp, maybe 4 or 5 days
in Miami?
I'm in Miami. Yeah. Did I say New England?
Yeah, you said New England.
I'm sorry. I'm out of New England. Now I'm in Miami. So I played 9 years in New England. Now this is my 10th year in the league, and we're in training camp in Miami. About the third day in training camp, at the end of a practice, Coach Lou Olivadotti, he was the defensive coordinator. He calls me. We're walking off the field. He says, "Hey, Irving, let me holler at you." So I stop, and we're talking while we're walking off the field. And he mentioned or said that he was the defensive coordinator for the University of Miami Hurricanes in that Orange Bowl.
Oh, wow.
Said, I remember the Orange Bowl. I was defensive coordinator for the Hurricanes then. He said, "You want to know how we were able to defend that 2-point conversion?" I said, "How?" He said, "We went back and looked at all the film, and you guys went for 2 points one time that year, and that's the play you ran."
Wow.
And so we were ready for it. And one of the things, if you remember correctly, Coach Osborne was old school. He didn't have a play sheet in front of him. He called the plays from his head, from his memory.
Right.
So in that 2-point conversion, that's what popped up in his mind.
Yep.
That's what popped up in his mind.
Let's go for
and that's
2.
why that's a part of, because it was weird to me how they were able to, even back when it actually happened, it was weird to me how they were able to get there so fast.
Yeah.
It was like they knew what we were doing.
Yeah.
And so they guessed. If we had run something else.
If we ran 49 pitch, we'd have scored.
49 pitch, we'd have scored. We'd have run something else, we'd have scored. But that's what popped up in Tom's head because, one of the reasons is he didn't use the play sheet.
Right.
We never had to go for 2 before. We went for 2 one time during that year.
Yeah.
We were blowing people out. We didn't have to go for 2 points.
Right.
So that's what he recollected. That's what came up in his mind. That's what he ran. And they just so happened they guessed the right way.
That's okay. That's all right. We overcame. I mean,
we got over it.
We got over it. It was not easy. That was a long flight
it wasn't
back.
Easy.
But
I still think about that drop I had. Oh, well, at least once a week.
But you know what, though? The one thing I can honestly say, we may not have won the national championship, but there's a lot of people remember our senior season. And they remember how it ended,
Yeah.
And ESPN always has a way of reminding us, too, every year, every August. When they go back over the plays of the decade or plays in the past, they're very good at that.
Yeah.
Well, Irv, listen, man, I want to ask you a couple more questions, too, man. After ball was all over, at this time, you had switched over. Well, actually, you became a pastor while you were playing, but you really jumped into being a full-time pastor.
Mm-hmm.
What was the main motivation for you wanting to do that, to become a pastor?
Did you just say I wanted to do it?
Oh, well, what was your calling?
My whole life, I've never done what I wanted to do.
I got you. I misspoke.
Except some of the foolish things.
Yeah.
But no, when I finished playing ball, Ricky, I went and I started doing football commentary, being a football analyst. There was a show I was on with Trev Alberts.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we had a show in Atlanta that came on Sunday mornings. It was live. I believe the show was live from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Our host, we were co-hosts, and our host, number one host, was Bob Lorenz. It was on CNNSI. And I did that for a year, and it was a great show. Then AOL came in and bought CNNSI and canceled the show. So then I started working with ABC here in Philadelphia. I was doing local sports, and they were kind of wanting me to become the sports anchor on the weekends. But then the Lord spoke and said, start the church. Like you said, I'd been preaching already. The Lord spoke and said, start the church. Well, I couldn't do both. I couldn't be the weekend anchor. And now I think I should have went and been the weekend anchor. Shoot, now I could have a two big nice pensions and be retiring right about now. Now I'm just a poor preacher. That's shoot. But anyway, so the Lord spoke about 2003, and I retired in about 2003 or a little before that. and it could have been late 2002. And we started the church in 2003. And we still have the church. Church has been going, it's been 20 some years now. And that's how it started, bro. It wasn't something that I never, ever had a thought of doing. But when the Lord spoke and I knew it was him, it struck a nerve worse than Collins did. It struck a nerve, and that nerve's been vibrating ever since, because there have been times along the way, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, there have been times along the way where I really just didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't. I was tired. I was frustrated. Dealing with people, dealing with Christians can be rough. Dealing with Christians can be rough. Christians, Black Christians in particular, are the people who have treated me, the times I've been treated bad in my life. Yeah. It's been Black Christians that have treated me worse than anybody else in my lifetime. I don't know about anybody else. I just know my situation, my life, my encounters, my journey. The people who have dogged me, the people who have kicked me, the people who have abused me, the people who have used me have been Black Christians.
Gotcha. Well, Irving, let me ask you this. Now, I understand what you just said, and I respect it. I'm just going to ask you, how did you deal with that?
How did I deal with it?
Yeah, I mean, because I know Pastor Smurf.
Before I give you the answer, I want you to tell me how you think I dealt with it.
That's what I was just getting ready. That's what I was just getting ready to say. Because I know Irving Fryar, aka Smurf, and I know how he deals with things. I watched this kid as a teenager, so I know that the way Irving that I know would deal with things is not nowhere in the same sentence with Christian or spiritual. Or religious, or whatever your choice may be. Yeah, no. So that's why I had to ask, man. That was a lot of adversity. Mm-hmm. How did you deal with that, man, in a productive way? Because you dealt with it in a productive way, because if not, you wouldn't be free.
Well, yeah. My feelings got hurt, man. There was, I really had to look within myself and find value from within, the value of myself from within. Yes, it did have to do with my spirituality. It had to do with my perception and what I believe and my faith about God, and how God sees me. And that's what I had to rely on and stand on, because if I tried to live my life based on what people said or what people thought, or what people did towards me, either I was going to be out of here, or so it was either going to be homicidal or suicidal. Yeah,
I got you. I understand that better than most.
One of the two. So I really had to examine myself and understand that I'm unique, that I'm valuable, that I'm one that is never going to be repeated. I'm a human personality that God created that will never be repeated. I'm in and of it by myself, only one. And there's value in that. There's copy. A lot of people go through life trying to copy somebody else,
right?
But they only end up in second place. And copies are cheaper than the originals. You know that.
Yes, correct.
So I had to really look on the inside and find who I was and who I am, and live out of that, and not really, one of the things that really hurt me more than anything, and I've been to prison and all of that, was how people treated me.
Right.
Because there were a lot of relationships that I thought I had, that I found out later on when trouble came. I found out that these are people that I would have done anything for, but it wasn't reciprocal.
Right.
They turned their back, they ran, they talked, they threw salt along the way. And the relationship was one-sided. They didn't think of me how I thought of them. They thought less of me than I thought of them. That was the part when trouble came, when I found myself in a predicament. That was the part of it that hurt the worst and was the hardest to deal with because I thought that I spent my whole life being a fool. Spent my whole life being a fool.
Yeah. Well, Irv, let me share something with you. When you were speaking just now, I thought about one of the things that motivates me to this very day, and I know this may not register with a lot of people, but I call them haters. You know, people gonna hate, man, and that's what they do. And the funny thing about haters, I saw this clip the other day. I don't even know where I saw it, but it was this lady telling a story about 3 frogs. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but basically the gist of the story was there was 3 frogs, and they jumped into this hole of depression. And the first frog was trying to jump up out of the hole to get out of depression. But around the top of the hole, it was surrounded by haters. And they just kept saying, you can't jump out of there. That's impossible. So the first frog, he kept trying, but he ended up dying because he was listening to them saying it was impossible. Second frog did the same thing. He was jumping, trying to get out. And he ended up dying as well because the haters was around the top of that hole saying, you can't do that. It's impossible. But the third frog started jumping, and they was telling him, you can't do that. That's impossible. Won't you give up like the other 2? And finally, that third frog, it jumped out of the hole. And they were asking the frog, how'd you do it? How'd you do it? Well, they come to find out the frog was deaf. He couldn't hear them. In other words, I ain't listening to y'all. I can't hear you no way. And I just think that that's important when it comes to adversity in our lives. People have the right to say whatever they like, but how we respond.
Right.
Because like I said, I know Smurf from college, and that ain't the guy you really want to run into with adversity. And I gotta jump right in there with you because you don't want to run into V. Clyde.
Right. V. Clyde.
Yeah, but the deal is, Irving Fryar and Ricky C. Simmons today are totally different people. Now, I don't think neither one of us has forgotten how to be Smurf and V. Clyde, but we're making choices today that prevents us from having to remind people that Pastor Smurf can also be somebody that we used to just call Smurf. And Ricky C. Simmons can be this dude named V. Clyde. And we don't want to see V. Clyde. And speaking of V. Clyde, I noticed you mentioned prison. V. Clyde went to prison 4 times. he had to make sure that they was not joking down there. He went 4 times, and he went to 10 treatment centers and graduated 9 of them. So we both know the value in dealing with adversity in a productive way.
You first of all, you don't know, and I don't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You don't know the sun is shining if you've never seen the dark or been in the dark.
Correct.
And you don't know good times if you've never experienced bad times.
Right.
And after pastoring, 12, 13 years, I guess it was, I ended up in a situation that put me in prison. I won't get into the details of that, but I went to prison for, now I'm a pastor. I've been married for 28 years, got 4 children, pastoring in my hometown where I grew up. And in that same town in Mount Holly, it was in the courtroom when they sentenced me to 5 years. It was crazy. I only spent, not only, because 1 day in prison is too long.
Oh, man.
I gotta be careful about saying that. I spent 8 months in prison. I spent 21 months after that on a program called ISP, Intensive Supervision Program. But it was during that time, and when I came out, my wife of 28 years had divorced me. The church was obviously not in good shape. People left. I didn't have any money. She took all the money. House was gone. Clothes were gone. I didn't have a car. I didn't have anything. I had to start all over again. It was 2015 when I got out, 2016 when I got out.
Well, I remember that because I was one of the few people that you would even have a conversation with.
Yeah, I was in a dark place.
Yeah.
V, for 5 years.
Yeah.
I was in a bad headspace listen, Smurf was right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Ricky can testify to this because I was in a bad headspace for 5 years because of all of the circumstances that surrounded it and were connected to it. I went to prison, was sentenced for something that I did not do. I was innocent of what I was sentenced. I was guilty of being connected to the guy and doing business with the guy. But what the story that the prosecutor told and how they twisted it around, man, it was crazy. And, I guess that saying is true. It's not a matter of who's guilty or who's innocent. It's who tells the best story in the courtroom.
Yes, yeah.
Who tells a believable story. So, yeah, they fixed it up, man. I was going through the divorce and going through that. I mean, lost everything. 9 years ago, I had to start all over again. But I'm going to say this, and I'm saying this not to you, V, because
Right.
I'm saying this to anybody who's listening right now. Man, I thought it was tragic. I thought, and that's why one of the reasons I was in bad headspace for 5 years when I came out, because I thought my life was over. How am I going to start all over again at 53 years old? I got a PhD. Who's going to give me a job? How am I going to take care of myself? I didn't have any money, didn't have a house, didn't have a car, didn't have clothes, but I still had all those bills.
Yes.
Still had all those bills. So what am I going to do? And man, I'm just going to be honest. I was looking for that cat. I would hear he was there. I was here, he was over there. And I go looking for him. And he wouldn't be there when I got there. That was just God.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't suicidal, but I sure was homicidal.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought my life was over.
Yeah.
But somehow, some way, because I didn't stop, because I didn't give up, because I kept, moving forward, I didn't think that, things were going to turn around, but they did eventually turn around. I'm not completely out of the hole as of yet, but man, it looks promising.
Right.
It looks promising.
Right.
That's because you got to keep moving. You got to keep grinding. Like I said, the disappointment and the hurt and the pain emotionally and psychologically when it came to people and they're turning their backs on me. Listen, I got a few friends now. I got a small crew. I got a few in my crew. You're one of them, V. Clyde.
Thank you very much, sir.
But you only need a few in your crew. I don't. Right. And see, I'm 62 years old now. I ain't trying to make no new friends. Right. I don't need no new friends.
Right.
I got my crew, and we're moving. I'm moving forward. But if I stopped, if I had given up, if I had let the pressure or the bills or the people cause me to do something stupid that would have put me back in prison or set me back again, then I wouldn't be here talking to you today on your show. I would be somewhere in another bad place. You have, listen, even when it's the worst, and let me say this, that was the worst thing that ever happened to me in my life. By far, the worst thing that ever happened to me in my life. But by far, it was the best thing that ever happened to me in my life.
Yeah.
The best thing.
I can relate.
Because I found me.
Right.
I found me. I found who I am. I found who my true loved ones are. And now life is better. Life is better now for me than the day I got drafted in the first round.
Yep. I can relate to that, Herb, and I'm going to tell you why. Because, see, a lot of times I agree with what you just said about not knowing the light until you've been in the dark. It's real easy, man, to skate through this thing called life. But, man, that's not the case for everybody. They call us individuals for a reason.
Right.
And I agree with that part too. There's not another Smurf. Like there's not another V. Clyde. And we basically had a choice. We can throw in the towel and go all with the kids say today, we could crash out or we could dust ourselves off and try again. And I'm just very proud of you that you dusted yourself off and you're doing it again. Because that's exactly what I had to do. Because I remember when you got out, and I was like, Irv, we got to do this and that, man. You should try this and that. You were like, man, I ain't trying to hear that.
Did I say that, man?
Yeah,
really?
you said it. And when you said it.
Listen, man, I was hot, man.
Yeah, I know.
Bro, I was hot.
I know you were hot. But see, as your brother, I know in my heart that you knew who was talking to you.
Yeah, no, I knew it was you.
I knew you was hot though.
That's why I ain't cuss you out.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what you did do was you listened.
Yeah.
And here's how we ended that before you made the changes. I said, well, Irving, I'll tell you what. I'm like a piece of furniture in your life. You can't get rid of me. So I'll tell you what you're going to do. Whenever you get past what you're dealing with, man, I'm going to be here. And I believe in you. I believe you can do big things. And you just said, all right, V. Clyde, and we hung up. And I'm standing here today, man. I'm the proudest guy in the world because I know how far that took you down. And then I see some of the things you're doing now, which is, I want you to share what you're doing now, man. I mean, just tell us some of the things that you're doing. I mean, with the podcast and all that. I mean, tell us about that, man. I mean, you went from what you went from to what you're doing now. Can you share that with us?
Right. Well, let me jump back just a little bit.
Okay.
When I first got out of prison, I went back to my bishop to let him know I was out. And when I got out of prison, I was on a program called ISP, Intensive Supervision Program, and I was mandated to have 2 jobs. So I got a job in the church, actually where I'm the associate pastor now, along with my church where I'm the head pastor. And that really gave me time. He hired me because somebody had just left. And his intention when I came there, obviously he didn't know I was coming to see him, but I was telling him what my situation was and what was going on, not to try to get a job or anything, but he said, you come work here. And that really, those 4 years I was there really gave me an opportunity to be around people who really cared, to be in an environment that wasn't hostile towards me. Because when I was released from prison, everywhere I went, I thought people knew that they knew who I was, and that they knew I just got out of prison, and that they were looking at me a certain kind of way. That's crazy.
Right.
That wasn't the case, but in some situations it was. So being in the church and working there on a daily basis really gave me a chance to get some peace and to really, shape my spirituality, my mind, and get my feet back on the ground and start thinking right again. But yeah, when COVID hit, the churches, obviously had to go online and have an online presence. And our church did not necessarily have that at the time. So when COVID hit, I really started getting into, podcasting because I wanted to do my Bible study virtually. And I wanted it to be good visually in terms of the what people saw. And I wanted the audio to be real good. So I did some research, and a friend of mine who was a pastor, he was doing, so you see my whole studio here. He was doing what I'm doing now out of my studio. And I started it as a Bible study. We were doing services in the church with just me and the audio video guy. Nobody was in the church, and we would broadcast from the church. But then when I was at home, I was actually on my phone. The quality wasn't the same. So I started doing things this way. Then the Lord spoke and said to me a couple of years ago, you need to start a podcast. So I started the Fryar Place. And lo and behold, guess who my first guest was?
I wonder if I know who that is.
Ricky V. Clyde Simmons. Yes, sir. And that's the way it should have been. And that's the way it was. And that's the way it should be.
Right.
Because again, you were one of those solid pieces in my life that, kept saying you believe in me, never judged me. You know who I am. Right. And you were my first guest, and it's just taken off from there, man. It's been almost 3 years now, going on 2.5, 3 years. And the subscriptions are way up, and it's just been phenomenal. So from there, I've been able to get back in contact with, some of the broadcasters and some of the football analysts here. I'm in New Jersey. We're close to the Eagles here in Philadelphia, and I got reconnected and started doing work, post-game, pre-game shows for the Eagles the last couple of years, actually the last 3 years. And in those few years, started another podcast called Wide Out's World. Wow. That's with former wide receivers, NFL wide receivers, Michael Timpson and Fred Barnett. It's the three of us.
Yes.
And we every week we're on. Our last show this season will be tomorrow. We're on every Wednesday night from 7 to 8 p.m. on YouTube, Wideouts World. And we just do an analysis of the wide receiver play in the NFL of that particular week. We give our predictions of the upcoming games. We talk about news in the NFL. We just cut it up, man. It's really good. I do another show with a former teammate of mine from here in Philly called Vetted. We came up with the name because we both played in the Vet back when the Vet was still up and running. We played for the Eagles. Hollis Thomas is my co-host. That comes on Tuesday nights from 7 to 8. And then I do a little short thing every week called Birds Insight with Irving on Instagram. I call it the BIIIG. so that comes on. It's on Instagram. You'll see me do posts from it, but Instagram is not like Facebook or YouTube. When you go live, it just stays on your channel. On Instagram, when you go live, it disappears. So I'll take clips from that and post them after I've gone live. But I do go live on Instagram and converse with the people, interact with the people who are watching at that time. And I'm back at the church down in Sicklerville. It's for some, I can't get away from it, bro. I can't get away from the Lord. Obviously, I can't get away. I am a preacher. I love preaching. I love teaching. I love the scriptures. And every time, when I came out of prison, I told the Lord, I'm like, I'm not doing this. How can I do this? I'm a convicted felon. How can I go back and preach? It doesn't matter what I know. What the people think is what matters. Right. Their perception. I'm a felon. How can I? Lord said, go back and get back to work. I'm like, I'm not doing this. So I made a deal. I was like, I made a deal with God. I said, okay, God, if there's 30 people left in the church, and we had probably 100 before I went to prison, 100, 150. I said, if there's 30 people left in the church when I get back, then I know it's you. I'll keep going. And then I got back. Guess how many people were in the church?
Don't say 30.
Yeah, 30.
Oh, wow.
30. That's why I kept going.
Wow.
I kept going. And then what happened, then COVID hit. And that was another big hit for the church. Yeah. So we ended up being just virtual. My church, we're just virtual. But again, there was a reason for that, I believe, too. And we're not the only church, who went virtual. We're not the only church who stopped having in-person services because of COVID. There are a lot of churches across the country that didn't make it, that don't even exist anymore, that just couldn't handle COVID. But I believe the reason we're virtual, and I believe the reason that things kind of not fell apart, but shifted in this direction, is because of where I am now, down at Christ Care Unit Missionary Baptist Church Cathedral in Sicklerville. My bishop is, he's 85 years old, and he needs my help. He needs my help. Yes. And I'm there with him. I'm right there next to him. We do everything together, and it's great. It's groovy. I love it. And things just keep moving forward, man. Things are getting better and better.
Well, Irv, I want you to know, man, that I'm just proud of you. And I just want to say that publicly. I want to say that on the show, because we don't do that a lot as men, as people, period. We're, as a race of people, whether it's you're black, white, it doesn't matter. It's very rare for us to just be able to give people credit, but we're real good about telling you when something's wrong.
Oh yeah. Well, we're cynical.
Yeah, we got that part down pat, but my thing is this: I try to show love and show respect, because Father Time is undefeated, and I would like to be able to say when I had a chance that I gave you your flowers while you were here. I'm not a big funeral guy, but the few that I've attended over my lifetime, that's when people all want to tell how great a person you were after you're gone. I'm not against that, but I just think that when a person's here, why don't you just show love then?
Right. At least it's too late when they're gone.
That's my point. So that's why I'm going out of my way to make sure you understand because I could do this in private and nobody would have to know. But
well, we have had these conversations in private. Bro.
Absolutely, but I wanted to have it publicly. So that's why I'm doing this. So I wanted you to know.
That's why I said what I said at the beginning of the show about V. Clyde. Nothing has changed. Yep. Nothing has changed. It's still the same. You're my brother, like you said, till death do us part, and even after that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm like a piece of furniture. You can't get rid of me. Irving, is there anybody out there you want to shout out to, man? I'm just kind of curious. Is there anybody you want to shout out to?
Are you throwing is there somebody we talked about I'm supposed to say something to?
Nope. This is off the cuff.
I'm going to say, was there somebody?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
I thought you were throwing me a hint.
Nope.
No, not really. Just, I would appreciate it. I know. And V. Clyde, listen, you doing big things too, bro. You doing big things.
I'm
show
trying.
Right here. This is awesome, bro. This is awesome.
Well, thank you.
Oh, this is nice. I need to try to hook up with your people there.
Okay, we can make that happen. We
Collaborate.
There you go.
Collaborate. Let's collaborate.
Yeah, we will make that happen.
Okay.
Okay.
But no, man. I don't get back to Nebraska that much just because I don't get back to Nebraska that much. I'm not even.
Yeah, I got you.
I just don't. But when I do come, the first person I call.
Oh yeah,
Ricky Simmons.
Oh yeah, come. Yeah, you gotta holler at your boy, man. You gotta do that.
I can't come without. Matter of fact, you're the only reason I come to Nebraska.
Well, it's not many of us from our squad that's still here.
Yeah,
everybody kind of scattered out. Yep.
So. Man, it's great. Congratulations on your new show, man. Keep up the good work. I know you're going to have a lot of great guests.
Oh, yeah.
And listen, anytime you need me, holler back. If something goes on in this country, and I know a lot of stuff's going to start going on in this country.
Right.
And around the world, we got planes falling out the sky. And we had the plane crash right here in Philadelphia, man.
Wow. I did see that.
Yeah, an area where I frequent. People, it's just... We're living in some crazy times.
Right.
Here's what I want to say about V. Clyde, everybody. He understands, I understand this, and I think I understand this because of Ricky. That, yes, ain't got time to be sad, ain't got time to be a grouch, don't have time. You want to be happy. Get your happy on. Yeah. Like Ricky said. I don't know if y'all watch him, but boy, I love it. Oh, my gosh. Get your happy on. Why? Because you cannot, and people do this in their marriages all the time. People do this in their relationships all the time. People do this on their jobs all the time. You cannot expect other people to make you happy.
Right.
You can't depend on other people to make you happy. You have to bring happy to the table.
Correct.
You have to bring happy to the table. So you got to deal with you, what you like, what you don't like, whatever. But understand that you're unique. You're valuable. There's only one of you. God made you the way he wants you to be. You're not too tall. You're not too short. You're not too dark. You're not too light. You're not too wide. You're not too thin. You're the way God made you. There's only one you. Walk in your giftedness. Walk in the things, the talents, the abilities that you have. Don't try to copycat somebody else. And when you do that, guess what? You create that happy, that joy from the inside.
Yep.
And then it becomes contagious. Why? Because you bring it with you.
Yep.
You bring it with you.
It follows you around.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to have to end this show, but I just wanted to.
I talked too long.
No, you're all good. No, you did a wonderful job, and I'm very, very appreciative. But I do want to say a couple of things before we wrap this show up. I always focus on the positive. Positive mental attitude is just big. You'll hear me say this over and over and over. But I really believe in a positive mental attitude. As simple as treating people the way you want to be treated. But I also have this mindset of every day that I'm blessed to see, it truly is another day in paradise. And I would challenge everybody that's listening to this, every day you're blessed to see, look like somebody. Do that for yourself. I think it's worth it. Thank y'all for listening. Irv, we'll be in touch with you too, young man.
Yes, sir, brother. Appreciate you, man. Love you much.
Love you too, dude.
All right.